"How dare you tear down my fence? You have absolutely no right to be on my land. Stay off my property." She smashed my fence at 6 a.m. while I was making pancakes. I heard this sharp crack like a tree snapping, and I ran outside in socks. Brenda Sterling, our HOA vice president, stood there in a neon visor with two guys and a rental saw. She pointed at my garden fence and said, "Violation, 18 inches over the line." Then she waved her paper like a queen. The crew cut, yanked, and tossed my posts like trash. My tomatoes lay crushed. My kids' painted birdhouse split in half. My hands shook so hard I dropped my phone. I tried to explain. I'd kept that fence in the same place since I moved in. The last owner kept it there 10 years before that. But Brenda said the HOA survey proved I was stealing common space. She smirked and told me to be grateful she wasn't fining me yet. Then she left my yard looking like a war zone. I filed a complaint with the HOA that day, sent photos, emails, texts. I even brought muffins to the next board meeting because I thought, stupidly, that kindness would calm things down. The board wouldn't even put me on the agenda. Neighbors looked at their shoes when I spoke. No one wanted to cross Brenda. One guy whispered she'd fine me for a flower pot. I can't afford another fight. They closed the meeting early. For a time, I stood in the parking lot with a box of muffins and a hole where my garden used to be. Anger burned, but it also cleared my head. If Brenda wanted to play paper games, I would bring paper fire. First, I pulled my closing packet. I found the old plat map and the deed. I drove to the county office and paid for the official recorded map. Then I hired a licensed surveyor. He came with tripods and bright strings and measured down to the inch. He showed me the stakes that had always been there, hidden under grass. His face went serious. "Your fence was fine," he said. "Actually, her patio is wrong. See that string? She's over the setback by 18 inches. It felt like the universe winked at me. The surveyor wrote a report. I printed every email where Brenda ordered the demolition. I pulled the HOA bylaws and highlighted the rule that any removal of personal property required written notice and an appeal window. She gave me neither. I also found something else. A recorded drainage easement that ran behind our lots. It guaranteed access for maintenance along the back 18 inches, my old fence line. Her new fix had buried it under paver stones and a fancy planter. I filed a police report for destruction of property. The officer was careful. He wouldn't arrest her, but he did write an incident number and told me to keep all receipts. Then I filed a small civil suit for damages and injunctive relief. I wasn't just asking for money. I wanted my fence restored, and I wanted a formal maintenance easement recognized on her side so this could never happen again. Word spread faster than dandelions. When the city inspector came to check the drainage easement, half the cul-de-sac came out with phones. Brenda marched out with her visor and said, "I'm on the board." The inspector pointed at the survey flags and said, "And I'm the inspector." He measured. He took photos. He looked at her patio. "This is encroaching," he said. The neighbors' cameras clicked like popcorn. Brenda tried to hold another emergency HOA meeting to clarify boundaries. I showed up with my surveyor and my binder. She tried to shut me down, but someone was live streaming by then. Comments poured in. She smashed his fence. 18 inches of doom. People were laughing, but my hands still shook. I spoke anyway. I told the room what it felt like to watch strangers rip up your garden while your kid cried over a broken birdhouse. I held up the bylaws. She ignored. I held up the county map and I said, "You didn't just mess with my fence. You messed with a recorded easement that protects everyone's drainage." The room shifted. The treasurer cleared his throat and asked the HOA lawyer. Yes, they'd brought one to speak. The lawyer stared at the maps and said, "We may have exposure." Brenda hissed the word lies, but no one followed. Court day came bright and cold. I wore my best thrift store jacket and a knot in my stomach. Brenda arrived with her visor and a stack of photos of my ugly fence. The judge asked gentle, simple questions. He looked at the survey, the bylaws, the notice rules, the inspector's report, and the easement document. He rubbed his chin and said, "You cannot demolish property without proper notice." The survey shows plaintiff's original fence was within boundary. The patio encroaches on setback and over the recorded drainage easement. Brenda went pale. The judge ordered the HOA and Brenda to pay for full restoration of my garden and fence. Triple damages for the unlawful removal and all my costs. He also recorded a permanent maintenance easement along the exact 18 inches behind our shared line, granting me clear access to maintain the fence, plants, and drainage. He gave Brenda 30 days to move her patio stones and planter off the easement and out of the setback. If she didn't, daily fines. He told the HOA to retrain the board on notice and due process. When I left the courthouse, the neighbors were waiting. Someone handed me a tiny birdhouse. Their kid painted to replace the broken one. People clapped. I laughed and cried at the same time. That night, a dozen phones were out as a crew, paid by the HOA, put my fence back where it belonged. Kids cheered when the new posts went in straight. The inspector returned and signed off. The police officer swung by, nodded at the fresh line, and said, "Looks right." Brenda tried one last power move. She put an orange cone on the easement and told me not to step on her stones. I stepped around the cone, opened the judge's order, and read the line about plaintiff's maintenance rights. She moved the cone. A week later, the patio was cut back exactly 18 inches. The planter vanished. The drainage flowed. The birds came back. Peace felt like sunlight. Now my garden is taller, my fence is stronger, and my neighbors smile when they pass. The board held elections, and guess who lost by a mile? I don't even think about 18 inches anymore, except when I step onto the easement that Brenda accidentally won for me. I water, I wave, and I let that victory soak into the soil. Please subscribe to Karen Conflict for more HOA showdowns like this.